Tonight, a surprise victory. Celebrations for Scottish Labour as Davy Russell wins the Hamilton by-election, taking the seat from the SNP.
It wasn't about listening to the normal rhetoric of the politicians, it was about listening to the people.
Reform took a quarter of the votes and came a close third. We've been out on the streets of Hamilton to find out what voters make of the result.
I was delighted. I was absolutely delighted with it. That's what I wanted.
So what does it all mean for the wider Scottish politics? I'll have analysis from the constituency on that, and also what it means for the election next year.
Preparing for the worst, but hoping for the best. The mother of the Scottish nurse convicted of killing elderly patients as judges consider an appeal. And in sport, after big changes at Ibrox, the Rangers chief executive says he's confident the club can close the gap on Celtic. I'm John Mackay. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. A surprise victory. What had been billed as a two-horse race between the SNP and Nigel Farage's Reform ended with a surprise win for Scottish Labour. Their candidate, Davy Russell, dubbed the Invisible Man by his rivals, emerged victorious, leaving the SNP trailing in second place and Reform in third. Voters went to the polls in the Hamilton, Loch and Stonehouse by-election after the death of the SNP MSP Christina McKelvey earlier this year. In a moment, we'll hear what this all means for Scottish politics. But first, a look at the results. Russell, who attributed his victory to old-fashioned chapping on doors, polled just over 8,500. He came 602 votes ahead of the SNP. Reform's Ross Lambie polled over 7,000. Meanwhile, the Tories were left trailing, a further 5,500 votes behind. So how does that compare with previous votes? Well, it's clear to see. All the traditional parties down, while Reform are on the rise. Well, before we hear from people in the constituency, our political editor, Colin Mackay, is there. So, Colin, what do you make of the result?
This is a big win for Labour. You know, at times during the campaign, they were all but written off. Yesterday at the bookies, you could get odds of 11-1 on them to win. And at the bookies just round the corner, there were queues of Labour supporters putting those on, Labour activists putting those on. But part of that, I think, was down to their candidate, Davy Russell, because he wasn't much of a media performer, as you said. He preferred chapping on doors. But yesterday, Labour activists knocked on the doors of about 8,000 identified supporters. That's not much short of their total vote. That is an incredible ground campaign in this election. And what did the voters actually make of it all? Well, Laura Alderman has been finding that out.
After weeks of politicians and campaigners knocking their doors and flooding their social media feeds, the people of Hamilton, Larkhall and Stonehouse have had their say. A local candidate and a new direction.
Who did you vote for and why?
David. And I believe him that he will make a change in Hamilton, and he's a local guy, so fingers crossed.
I was delighted. I was absolutely delighted with it. That's what I wanted.
Personally, I like some things about all of the parties, especially Reform as well, but it is what it is.
As long as it wasn't Reform, I was happy.
And why is that?
Well, you know what Reform's like.
You tell me.
Extremely right-wing, racist. Simple as that.
So how did it feel to have them come third in this area then?
Disappointing, because it was a reasonably close third.
But for others in Hamilton, what's disappointing is that Nigel Farage's party didn't win.
I wanted to meet him.
Yeah, I wanted to meet him as well, but again, third's a good position for them. I know I would have loved it to be first, but they haven't really done a lot in Scotland yet.
Leading up to the Holyrood elections next year, will you be voting for Reform then?
Yeah, definitely.
Reflecting on a frenzied few weeks, locals like Tracy Ann are taking stock. She says her customers just felt like the SNP simply fell out of fashion here.
The past week it's been really quite busy in the streets, so I've been looking at who's been out, who's been saying what, who's been the kind of buzz about the place, because it's never usually as busy as this. I have to say a lot, my customers have all been saying Reform.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was not surprised they came third, because I know they're not massive in Scotland just now, but I think they're definitely gaining traction. I was quite surprised it was Labour, to be fair. I thought maybe SNP might just get it.
For the SNP, Labour and Reform, it was a closely fought contest. But for diners here, none of the candidates really went down a treat.
Why did you vote for Labour?
Well, I usually vote for them. You know, I have voted for SNP in the past, but as I say, I think it's just a toss-up now, because I don't think any of them do much good, to be honest.
I was quite pleased that Labour get in, you know, because, as I said, it's the best of a bad lot of everything that's going on now.
Within reason. It doesn't matter who gets in, as long as they make changes and make a good job.
That's what their new MSP has promised to deliver, as the focus now shifts to the next Holyrood election in just under a year's time. Laura Alderman, STV News, Hamilton.
We'll have more on what this all means for next year's Holyrood election shortly, but first let's take a look back at how the night unfolded.
Come on, Davey!
Hamilton has a history of big by-election results. This maybe wasn't historic, but it's quite significant.
Yay!
Ross Lambie, Reform UK, 7,088. Katie Loudon, Scottish National Party, 7,957. Davy Russell, Scottish Labour Party, 8,559.
The SNP went into yesterday quietly confident. Pollsters and bookies had made them favourites, but whilst they predict, it's the voters who decide. Labour's winning candidate had been accused of hiding during the campaign, but he hit back last night.
Reform have no real answers to the issues we face, and they can't beat the SNP here or replace them across Scotland. And for Ross, can you see me now?
Labour's campaign had focused on chapping doors and talking to voters, but today they had their victory parade.
Morning all!
And stepped up their attacks on the SNP.
They ran a disgraceful and shameful campaign. Yes, we were right to call out the dirt and the smears of Reform, but look at the spectre of John Swinney, who actually actively tried to drive people into the arms of Reform with his messaging, and also after 18 years of government, didn't stand on his record, didn't stand on any positive offer. Instead, all he did was say, vote SNP to stop Farage. Farage can't be First Minister, he can't form his Scottish Government, it's either me or John Swinney. And if you want to end SNP incompetence, if you want to end SNP failure, and you want to end SNP waste, people have to elect a Scottish Labour Government.
Davy Russell, congratulations on winning the by-election.
Thank you.
You confounded your opponents, you confounded the media and the critics in this campaign.
Yes, well, I told you when you interviewed me up in the park that the big issues in this campaign, it wasn't about listening to the normal rhetoric of the politicians, it was about listening to the people, and I did that, and I'm so proud that the people of Hamilton, Larkhall and Stonehouse have put their faith in me, and I will represent them to the best of my ability.
The SNP had some momentum going into this, but losing brings it to a screeching halt.
I've got us back into contention. I've got us into a position where we can contend for leadership in Scotland. We've made some progress, but not enough. And we need to build on that. We need to learn the lessons of what people are saying to us in this by-election, listen carefully to the concerns of the electorate and build for 2026.
Reform went from nowhere to third on a quarter of the vote, challenging both Labour and the SNP.
We are now a clear player in Scottish politics. There's no these if, buts or maybes in polls. There are now figures that shows we are now Scotland's third biggest political party. The Tories are done. The Liberal Democrats are finished. The Greens are fallen back. It's now a straight fight between us, the SNP and Labour across central Scotland and the west of Scotland, Glasgow and other places across Scotland. That's going to be an exciting opportunity for Reform.
With less than a year to go until the Scottish Parliament election, this result gives a pointer to the way things are moving. It's a big boost for Labour, a bump on the road for the SNP, and a show of strength for Reform. What it really shows, though, is that it's game on for the Holyrood election.
Back to Colin in Hamilton. So, Colin, what does it mean for the Scottish election?
Well, if you're in Hamilton, Larkhall or Stonehouse, it means a lot to you today because you've just elected a new MSP. But if you're in Edinburgh, Alloa or Ayrshire, it might not mean quite as much because there'll be different trends going on there because this is a by-election. It's not an opinion poll because the opinion polls will look at voters across the country. This is a real vote, but it's just in one Lanarkshire constituency. What it shows, though, is that Labour have a fair bit of momentum and they have by far the best campaign organisation going into that election next year. And one small indication of that, I was phoning around the parties last night just to try and get a bit of a handle on how things were going. I was asking them what the turnout was. Labour reckoned it was about 45%. The SNP reckoned it was about 35%. In actual fact, it was 44.2%. So Labour were pretty much on that, and they weren't just guessing either. But that illustrates another key element of this entire by-election, the scunner factor. More than half of the voters in this constituency didn't bother to turn out because many of them told me in the streets here over the last few weeks they're just sick of the politicians. So what this by-election tells me is that Reform are serious players in Scotland next year. It dunts the SNP's confidence of a comeback and it gives Labour a boost, a big boost.
Colin in Hamilton, thank you. The mother of a Glasgow nurse says she's frightened but hopeful as judges retire to consider an appeal which she believes could end a 17-year nightmare. Colin Campbell, formerly known as Colin Norris, was found guilty of murdering 4 elderly patients by injecting them with insulin. His barrister told appeal judges in London it's a straightforward case and they must conclude the convictions are unsafe. The prosecution's lawyers say nothing has changed since the original trial. Here's our chief reporter, Sian Frew.
Judges are now to consider the safety of every one of the 5 convictions of this Scottish nurse who has spent almost 2 decades in prison.
It feels quite surreal because we've waited so long for this to happen. It's scary, hopeful as well, and quite frightening at times. Is this coming to an end, this nightmare that we've been going through for over 17 years?
Colin Campbell, who was formerly known as Colin Norris, denies any wrongdoing. He was found guilty in 2008 of murdering 4 women and of attempting to murder a 5th by injecting them with insulin. All were elderly inpatients on orthopaedic wards at 2 hospitals in Leeds, where the Scot worked in 2002. Each developed severe, unexplained hypoglycemia or extreme low blood sugar.
We've never believed that he's been guilty of any of these. We've always believed that these women were not murdered. While the courts were off, I was down last week seeing him. I think he's just taking day by day just now and hoping. What is it they say? Prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
In his closing submission, Campbell's barrister told the appeal judges the convictions are unsafe. The arguments for the appeal include fresh evidence from 2 medical experts and the existence of 3 extra cases. These patients died after suffering profound hypoglycemia at the same hospitals after Campbell stopped working there. Michael Mansfield KC argued there is now a range of possibilities of how the patients died, including natural causes. The lawyer for the Crown Prosecution Service said the court must uphold the convictions, adding that the jury in Campbell's trial were provided with the necessary relevant facts and issues and heard from a plethora of highly qualified and clinically experienced witnesses. Others also now await this decision, the relatives of the 5 elderly patients.
A lot of these families, they believed that their loved ones died naturally, and then they get told that there was a nurse that basically murdered them. And me, as a mother, I know my son's not capable of anything like that. So it breaks my heart to think that these families are good. I mean, there's no winners. There's no winners in this.
A judgment will be issued in writing at a later date. Sharon Frew, STV News.
A body has been found in the search for the missing teenager Cole Cooper this afternoon. The 19-year-old from Loch has been missing for 4 weeks. Police made the discovery in a wooded area near Cole's home in Falkirk. Officers say while formal identification has yet to take place, Cole's family have been informed. The family of a teenager who was stabbed to death in Glasgow are planning a march against knife crime. 16-year-old Corey McCrimmon died after he was found seriously injured in the city's East End last year, with a 14-year-old sentenced to 5 years detention after admitting culpable homicide. Corey's family are urging people to join the Parents Against Knives walk between Ibrox and Celtic Park later this month, saying his life will not be in vain. A man has appeared in court charged with attempted murder amid a crackdown on gang violence in the Central Belt. 20-year-old Owen Martin is also accused of willful fire-raising at a house on Glasgow's Drumchapel Road last month. He made no plea and has been remanded in custody. It's the 42nd arrest so far linked to incidents across Glasgow and Edinburgh. Needle bins have been installed by Glasgow City Council at a site near the Thistle Safe Drug Consumption Room after worries over public injection. Dumped needles have also been removed from the area of derelict land in Carlton as part of the clean-up. The council says it took action in response to local concerns. Scotland's Muslim community has been gathering to celebrate Eid-ul-Adha, or the Festival of Sacrifice. It's an important part of the Muslim calendar, with those taking part enjoying special prayers and the sharing of food. Rahim Cham visited a mosque in Glasgow.
It's 2 months after Ramadan and Muslims in Glasgow are celebrating Eid-ul-Adha, marking the end of the annual pilgrimage in Mecca. Thousands of worshippers have gathered at Glasgow's Central Mosque for the special prayers.
So Eid al-Adha is a key date within the Islamic calendar. It comes a day after the day of Hajj, which is when the pilgrims will gather on the outskirts of the holy city of Mecca and perform certain rituals to fulfill the Hajj pilgrimage. Many of those rituals that they perform come from the time of the Prophet Abraham.
As families share pleasantries and selfies, the cultural and national attires take centre stage.
This is a Libyan traditional dress. We call it Zaboon.
Nigerian inspired from the northern part of Nigeria.
This is actually, they call it the national dress for Malaysia.
The outfit, this is from Nigeria. We call this one, we call it Buba.
At this makeshift mosque in Bridgeton is the Sudanese community. As the war rages at home, community leader Mohammed says Eid will never be the same again.
The war affected me because now more than 25 Eids I'm celebrating outside Sudan because I'm not able to go back home because of insecurity, because of the war, and the situation is very difficult.
Feasting is a big part of Eid, and that's what this small group from Bangladesh are enjoying.
It's a time where we all come together as a family. Even if we're not blood related, it's people that we've known for a long time, and it's just in our busy lives, we're not able to see each other very often, but in Eid and when eating, this is the time when you get to know each other very closely.
Families have gathered across the city, dressed in their finest, to pray, share food, all in the spirit of generosity and faith. Here in Glasgow, Eid is a powerful reminder of unity in diversity and a joyful celebration that brings a whole community together. Rahim Cham, STV News, Glasgow Central Mosque.
Now, Rahman is here with the Friday Sport.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Summer Sale.
Good evening. Rangers Chief Executive Patrick Stewart is very confident they can close the gap on Celtic after what he says has been a seismic week for the club. Following changes in the boardroom and the dugout, some fans are unhappy after Russell Martin was appointed as head coach yesterday. Stewart says the board are not oblivious to the noise. A new head coach, a new sporting director and a club under new ownership. The big changes at Rangers all within a week.
An awful lot of activity for one club in 1 week. So I think it does herald a really positive new chapter for the club. So yeah, I think it is a seismic period for the club and sets a really strong foundation for the future.
Russell Martin is the club's fourth managerial appointment in 4 years, and in those years Celtic have won title after title. Last season they finished 17 points above Rangers. Martin will have significant funds to strengthen his squad. So is there a confidence at Ibrox they can close the gap on their city rivals?
Always been confident we can do that with or without new investment, and what the new investment does allow us is to accelerate on the plans, accelerate on the strategy. So I've always been confident that we can do that. Now that we've got new ownership in that are highly engaged, highly committed, we're bringing in new management. I think we're in a really, really good position. So of course I'm confident, and yeah, very confident about that.
Martin's appointment has been met with disappointment by sections of the Rangers support, and this is not lost on those who hired him.
We're not oblivious to the noise at all, not at all. But I think we are confident that because we've conducted such a thorough process to take us to this point where we've appointed Russell, that we're confident that the supporters will get behind him, particularly when they see him in action. I've seen names have been mentioned in the media. Some may have been involved, some may not have been involved, but we only made one offer for this role, and that was to Russell Martin.
The expectations are high. Russell Martin will soon start working with his players, then it'll be time to deliver. Now to international matters, and Steve Clarke says it's time Scotland improved their record in friendly matches ahead of their clash against Iceland tonight. Well, Jimmy Borthwick is at the National Stadium for us. Jimmy.
Yes, Raman, well, World Cup qualifications already underway for a number of other national teams. For Scotland, it doesn't get going until September. So for us, it's back-to-back friendlies, starting with Iceland here tonight before a trip to take on Liechtenstein. And the big motivator is going to be building momentum. Steve Clarke and his team have had some disappointing recent results. Indeed, they've only won one of their last 9 friendly matches. And Clarke knows that tonight is going to be no gimme either.
They've shown they're a good team. This time last year they went to Wembley in a friendly and beat England. So we know they're a threat. They're a very ambitious team, play with a lot of threat going forward. They're very open, they want to have a go at you. So it should be a good entertaining night.
We go into these 2 games looking to win first and foremost, because I think we need to try and get back to being consistent and winning games and competing in games. And I think we can start with these first 2, and then it's about building a squad and seeing what we've got as a full package going into the World Cup qualifying.
Well, there are 7 uncapped players in Steve Clarke's squad, but as the head coach himself readily admits, he's not exactly renowned for fielding experimental sides. I think we can expect to see a fair amount of familiarity in his lineup here this evening. The World Cup qualifiers are looming, and back-to-back wins starting here again against Iceland this evening would be the perfect preparation.
It sure would. Jimmy at Hampden, thanks very much for that. To rugby, and Glasgow Warriors head coach Franco Smith says his team is in a good place ahead of the Warriors United Rugby Championship semi-final against Leinster tomorrow. The squad travelled to Dublin earlier, minus Hugh Jones, who's failed to recover from an Achilles injury. Glasgow lost both matches against Leinster this season, including a 52-0 thrashing in April.
We've got to be on top of our game. We know that. It goes without saying. I've got a world-class team. They've proven it on the test match arena. They've proven it in this competition. We're not, hardly losing a game in the first 18 weeks. I always knew, that this part of the season, and with the semi-final and final and quarter-final approach, everybody's mindset and the attitude adapts to it.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Summer Sale.
And one final piece of football news, John. Former Celtic manager Ange Postecoglou has been sacked 16 days ago. He won the Europa League, now he's out.
What do you have to do? Rahman, thank you. Now Sean has the weekend weather.
Outbreaks of ancient sites will gradually settle into an evening of pizza plates al fresco. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Very good evening to you. We're going to hang on to low pressure to the north of us through this weekend. That'll keep the temperatures around the mid-teens, and it will be very showery once again. A lot of instability around, especially during tomorrow. And this is the showery zone that I've highlighted, so most of us seeing some heavy showers during tomorrow. Although the further northwest we go, parts of the Hebrides, also the far West Highlands, hopefully turning a wee bit drier and brighter by the end of the day for us. Now out there at the moment, well, we've seen plenty of showers bubbling up once again this afternoon, a few heavy ones, especially further east, but most of those easing. Dry evening for many of us before we start to see some rain coming in from the west later on tonight. And that does mean the temperatures stay on the milder side, about 9 or 10 degrees Celsius. Now tomorrow morning for most of us, showers from the word go, especially across Ayrshire, around the likes of Renfrewshire, Inverclyde and Bartonshire, Argyll and Bute, but then those showers spreading to all parts through the afternoon, and some very bright colours in there, so some of the showers will be heavy, possibly thundery as well, especially in central, southern and eastern areas. But across the far northwest, hopefully around the likes of Lorne, Loch, Fort William, Col, Tyree, Mull, the small isles will start to see those showers becoming fewer and further between. Hopefully a dry end to the day for us. Although on Sunday there'll still be showers around, and the bulk of them this time in the west. It'll be drier across eastern parts. We continue to see showers through next week, but have a look at the temperatures, even though there'll be showers, turning quite a bit warmer, especially in central parts. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
It's 125 years ago to the day since the oldest working steamship in the country, the Sir Walter Scott, embarked on her maiden voyage on Loch. A festival is marking the special anniversary, and as Tara Fitzpatrick's been finding out, it's full steam ahead for the years to come.
A warm welcome for this iconic symbol of Loch. The Sir Walter Scott has been a proud attraction of these waters, now known as the birthplace of Scottish tourism.
The Sir Walter Scott steamboat is celebrating 125 years on Loch since its maiden voyage here in 1900. After being built on the Clyde in 1899, and to celebrate, they've invited 125 school pupils on board for a cruise.
And to mark its anniversary, the famous Scottish novelist himself was in attendance to host a sailing and a pirate-themed treasure hunt.
So, I will ask for a bit more respect.
I think it's good because it's been around for a long time, and it's good to celebrate things that have been in history.
The thing that I was finding really exciting was doing the treasure hunt.
I'm actually very excited. I've heard there's flags that we have to wave, and then we get ice cream. I like ice cream, and I like boats and stuff.
Along with the Sir Walter Scott, this weekend's festival will celebrate all steamboats, big and small. Tara Fitzpatrick, STV News, Loch.
I think we all like ice cream. That's it from all of us here. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend.